A warm welcome to Aviation this week on Channels Television. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi. Thank you so much for joining us. Civil aviation is a critical element in any nation's transportation system and indeed its economy. Nigeria, being Africa's most populous country, is an important destination for over 22 foreign carriers and more than 10 domestic carriers. With numerous challenges facing the local industry, experts believe there is need to ensure access to capital for airlines, plus aviation agencies should render reliable services, among other solutions. That's our focus on the show. Still on the program, the Nigerian Air Force holds its safety seminar with high-ranking officials in attendance as NAV seeks safer operations in conflict areas. And Dubai Airport raises passenger number expectations for the year ahead. Let's take to the skies with a background report.
Air transport is an important enabler to achieving economic growth and development. Air transport facilitates integration into the global economy and provides vital connectivity on a national and international scale. It helps generate trade, promote tourism, and create employment opportunities.
General questions. And Mr. Babatunde Adeniji,
perhaps the critical nature of aviation is why principal and interested actors are present to discuss the future of aviation in Nigeria. One of the speakers here is the former Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, who believes that all of the commitments from the Yamoussoukro decision and even the single African air transport market for the continent would require member states, including Nigeria, to step out of their comfort zone.
It failed mainly because of the airlines, because the airlines were not willing to venture out. They were afraid they were going to die, and they convinced their principals that if you open up, we will die. And that's why it hasn't worked. The same still holds true for the SATIM today. Because so long as the airlines and powers and shakers convince their governments not to open up, Africa will continue to suffer. Africa will not move forward. Africa will not become the giants. The states will not become the giants that you have in the rest of the global space. We have poor air connectivity. We have low traffic because on some routes, especially because the fares are just too high. And so there isn't.
From the continent to Nigeria, other stakeholders speak on their plans and contributions. The Minister of Aviation, who joined online, believes the present administration is supporting carriers.
So we are more than ready as a body government to support entrepreneurs in civil aviation, to open the door for them, to fight for them abroad, to push them to go and do businesses. I've given them London routes, which is a lucrative. I've given them Dubai. Everywhere they want to go, I've given them.
The issue of a national carrier is of particular concern to many.
In a fantastic world, you ask all those airlines to all come together and let's put our resources, technical, financial, and otherwise, into one project where we can be very good and strong. So you look at the ones that we're partnering with Ethiopian Airlines, and I bet you don't have a proliferation of airlines in Ethiopia. Kenya Airways, you don't have a proliferation of airlines. South African Airways, you don't have a proliferation of airlines. You just have one strong one that everybody says we're going to back you up and stay behind you. Obviously, in the past, people used to run away because of government strong participation and interference, to be quite frank. But now the model is the government says, okay, we'll take a back seat, okay, and we'll bring investors, both in terms of finance, expertise, competence, capability, partnerships, and so on, to help to get this new airline going. But at the moment, we're so diluted and so scattered that, again, the airline is going to come in, and I don't know how it would avoid facing the same challenges that the current airlines face.
Nigerian Airways was reasonably successful airline. It was run into the ground because people didn't allow the business to run itself, and so there were lots of free tickets and all sorts of things that we heard, bad behavior that we saw. Hopefully we've learned from those lessons, but whether it's a national carrier or it's a private airline, the aviation industry needs support, so it's going to struggle.
PCL Aviation Customers Survey.
A survey from Phillips Consulting presented at this occasion showed that the two domestic carriers, Air Peace, jointly control half of the domestic passengers' market share. Air Peace with 31.67% and Ibom Air has 19.58%. Surprisingly, 16.24% of passengers do not prefer any airline, although ARIC ranks as the third most preferred airline by passengers. The survey shows that more than half, 56% of the respondents selected the Murtala Mohammed Airport, Lagos, as their most frequent point of departure. The Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport is chosen by more than a quarter, 30% of respondents, whereas just 4% of respondents utilize the Malam Aminu Kano International Airport. Just 10% of respondents utilize the Eastern Region-based airports Calabar, Enugu and Port Harcourt airports.
Staying with the forum in Lagos, where the guest speaker is the Managing Director of Ibom Air, Mr. George Uresi. He believes the agencies of government should provide reliable service and access to capital is necessary if airlines will grow their fleet from small to a bigger one.
If you think about the irony and what makes it very painful is the fact that we, Nigeria, more than anybody else on this continent, have absolutely no reason to be there. Imagine we have the biggest domestic market. You're talking domestic market in the continent, it is inside Nigeria. You're talking international markets on the continent, it is inside Nigeria. It is lucrative and highly elastic. Whether economy good, whether economy bad, Nigerians will fill up your aeroplane from the front every day. You want to doubt it? Ask British Airways, ask Lufthansa, ask Ethiopia, ask all of them. Right? And on top of it, it is Nigerians. That's a big opportunity because what happens is that 90 to 95% of every flight going in or out of Nigeria is carrying 90 to 95% Nigerians going and coming from all over the world because we are everywhere and we are here. Whatever we do about the agencies, if you like, let it be government-owned, if you like, let it be privatized, if you like, let it be public-private partnership. All the models all over the world are successful. What it is about is providing reliable, world-class airport and airspace infrastructure services. That's all. Let every airport in this country be like every airport you go to everywhere else, where we have navigational aids, visual aids, the right signage, the right equipment, everything is working, the staff are professional, they are custodians of the knowledge of their area of business. You can't be in an agency for 30-something years and not even know the business and grow all the way to director. You have to know the business. By the time you're there for 5 years, understand the airport business and stop the arbitrariness. Make it by force with Koboko. Let the airports have master plans and let them be frozen. Johannesburg International, Cape Town, they didn't just happen. Everything is done according to a plan. Everything has a reason and a logic. You can't just build a very fine building and everybody say, when you enter the thing, the aesthetics is so beautiful and Nigeria don't get terminal. And when you were building, were you planning for helicopters to use it? Well, wannabe airlines. You can't have a scheduled career that can be sustainable and successful with 5, 6, 7 aeroplanes. You simply cannot. You have to build your airline to the point where you have 25, 30, and rising to be a reliable, scheduled carrier. You know, you have 5 aeroplanes, one gets a snag, your whole schedule is messed up. They're always going to snag. But if you can't invest in growing them, because they're very expensive to do, if you can't invest in growing, you remain like that. 10 years, you are doing 5, 7, 5, 7. You're not really an airline, no. Whereas the airlines that are going around freely able to send their aeroplanes to people like us to start airline because they have too many. Brand new, 138. Maybe they are using like 80. They have another 60 or 70 waiting for who they can go and help. They are making airline everywhere and sending the aeroplanes there with their pilots and all that and helping us. We ourselves, the domestic airline, we must professionalize now. You know, start to do things differently. And one of the things we need to do is to establish proper corporate governance. You know, an airline is an entity on its own. build the requisite organizational capability to be able to be a successful airline, be able to run an airline the way everybody else does it. And airlines that are owned by people, the airline is an entity. It's not, they have to separate the airline from the owner. Please, let's consider seriously the Nigerian government being able to provide whatever they call it, the access to aircraft, new aircraft by Nigerian Airlines, where they pay in Naira. This is a major issue. And I believe it is something that Nigeria can innovate, establish a body that goes and purchases the aeroplanes from the manufacturers on behalf of the local businesses, but cedes it to the local business, and the business pays it in Naira. If you can pay your lease fees in Naira, I tell you, man, half of the problems of the domestic airlines is solved.
With less than a month to Christmas, passenger numbers are already surging, with ticket prices peaking at between 150,000 and 160,000 for a return ticket to any of the major destinations. At the Muritala Mohammed Airport 2, passengers who spoke with Channels Television said that the ticket prices have not really changed in recent times.
I bought the ticket for 76,000 naira.
Okay, compared with last month, how did you rate it?
Last month, I think it was a bit expensive, but it's been up and down between 60 and 80.
80,000 naira. It's a little bit difference. Last month was around 60, 65.
Enhancing safety in the Nigerian airspace in conflict situations is a subject of discussions at this safety seminar in Lagos, organized for top officials of the Nigerian Air Force. The success of the war against insurgency to a large extent is dependent on the air surveillance and aerial attacks on militant camps. That's why there is a major focus on safety management systems.
That the Air Force saw the need in the build-up to its implementation, that the felt safety management system could actually improve safety in the service, even though it's a borrowed system. There's something about safety. Accidents alone does not truly define your safety picture. But last year, we had two tragic events that really made a question mark on our safety management system. Because ordinarily we have been expecting that if the safety management system that we implemented was not able to stop it, it would have at least reduced the consequences of the action.
Beyond management systems, military aviation safety is of great concern to all, particularly because aviation accidents can erode war-fighting capabilities, so spreading increased safety across board is the goal.
Eventually also develop the safety culture, which becomes part and parcel of us, and then air operations become safer, and also ground operations, in that safety, as we say, is everybody's business. Not necessarily for the pilot or the aircraft engineer, but also those on ground, as what you call occupational safety, health and environment. So everybody is involved, health safety and all facets of safety.
The Nigerian Air Force is also concerned about the health of its personnel.
Beyond concentrating on operational safety, the Chief of Air Staff has also emphasized the need for medical and health safety of our personnel, because first of all, if the mind itself is not healthy, then how can you or your own begin to exercise safety in your environment? So he made sure that those aspects are also brought to bear. So medical safety, work area safety, operational safety, and everything that will enhance our operation as a service.
As the occasion winds down, senior officers were inducted into the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria to improve ground and flight safety in the country. When we return after the break, a report on both Qatar and Dubai airports. To join us again. Over 900 daily flights will be flying into both Qatar's international airport as the tiny Gulf nation continues to host the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Qatar Airways is also ready to add more flights as the need arises during the tournament.
We also have a large number of aircraft that are on standby because in the second week of the tournament, when the people are getting closer to the semi-finals and finals, there will be a huge demand on us from countries that are winning and are coming closer to the target of being a champion. So we are very ready in QR to be able to put additional flights to those particular destinations where we have a huge spike in demand and passenger bookings.
Mayor and Baker were speaking at the opening of the passenger overflow area at HIA, which is planned to provide some World Cup entertainment for passengers prior to their departure from Qatar. Most visitors will pass through Hamad International Airport, which became Qatar's primary airport and home of national airliner Qatar Airways in 2014. However, the doors of the older Doha International Airport have been also reopened to help accommodate the influx of visitors during the tournament. Now to Dubai, where its main airport has raised its passenger forecast for this year by 1.5 million to 64.3 million after passenger traffic nearly tripled in the third quarter from the same period last year.
Our projection for Q4, actually, which obviously includes the World Cup traffic, is something like 494,000 passengers for Q4. Reflective of the fact we've got 120 daily flights during the tournament in Doha coming through DWC, specifically there for fans to go backwards and forwards to the matches.
Dubai International Airport, a major international travel hub, handled nearly 18.5 million passengers between July and September 2022. The 2022 traffic forecast had been raised to 62.8 million from 62.4 million with third quarter results. Dubai International Airport has a maximum capacity of about 118 to 120 million, but expects 77.8 million passengers next year and about 93.3 million in 2025. Dubai's travel industry has been recovering steadily since the pandemic, as a fast vaccination program allowed it to open up sooner than most cities. While the 6-month World Fair that ended in March this year helped boost the recovery.
Well, we're optimistic that Q4 will be even better than Q3 because the numbers that we're seeing coming through now are exceeding our projections. We've just actually revised our projection for the end of the year up to 64.3 million from 62.8 million, and we've kept revising our forecasts over the last few months in the upward direction because we're seeing very, very strong demand for Dubai, particularly in the point-to-point traffic, which has been extremely strong.
Also a boom for Dubai are the many soccer fans basing themselves in the commercial hub for the World Cup in neighboring Qatar, where accommodation capacity is stretched.
The World Cup, I think, is very good for the GCC because it starts to put yet more international events on the map and encourages people to come to the region. And we're particularly grateful here that a lot of people have decided to tie in their visit to the World Cup to come and visit Dubai and spend some time here. So it's been incredibly beneficial for the city.
Dubai-based fans are using dozens of daily flights to Doha out of Al Maktoum International Airport, which is also operated by Dubai Airports. The airport expects nearly 500,000 passengers in the fourth quarter. DWC's capacity is 26.5 million and could rise to as much as 240 million in the long term, possibly replacing Dubai International Airport. A small plane has crashed into high-voltage power lines near Washington, D.C. and has been removed by a crane hours after both the pilot and passenger were rescued. The aircraft crashed in misty and wet conditions in Montgomery Village, Maryland. It was also caught up in live power lines about 100 feet from the ground.
At 12:25, the first
Washington Area Utility Company PEPCO said it had to cut off power but has now restored electric service for all customers who had been impacted by the incident. The company says it's continuing to stabilize energy infrastructure at the scene and assessing damage before beginning repairs.
With serious injuries, crews were going to be having a planning meeting in a few minutes in which we'd figure out and develop the next several hours of operations. So that will evaluate and make a determination as to what resources remain here. But it is likely that Goshen Road will be closed for quite some time as the plane needs to be secured, removed, and the power lines need to be restrung and reconnected.
According to the Federal Aviation Administration, the Mooney M20J aircraft was flying from Westchester, New York, and had been due to land at Montgomery Air Park close to the crash site.
Hundreds of meters above the village of Yenapeng in northern Ghana, a small drone locks its sights on 6 airplanes, not soaring through the cloudless sky, but parked in the middle of a verdant field miles away from the nearest runway. The drone's 16-year-old pilot, Jenapeng native Abdulateef Zachariah, stood with his father Dana in the shadow of a vintage Antonov crop duster, one of 6 planes that world-renowned artist Ibrahim Mahama brought to the village late last year.
I was born here, but I grew up in the capital in Accra. And Accra, over the years, you've come to understand that it's a bubble, like many centers of capital around the world. And the true work that needs to be done most often is actually in communities outside the centers of capital. You know, if you're able to do anything within these spaces that transform ideas, lives, and things like that, in the future, it means that it's going to make the entire country, or even the entire world, even a much better place.
Their grandeur, almost startling amid the flat and sparsely developed landscape, draws a daily stream of visitors to Red Clay Studio, the multi-acre compound that Mahama has for 3 years been building into an open-door communal education hub. Situated within the very community his father was born in, Red Clay is made up of several warehouse-sized buildings built from recycled materials and locally sourced red clay bricks. During the school year, crowds of students regularly thread Red Clay's towering halls, hearing lectures on history or conservation before exploring the gutted chassis of former commercial airliners. The material choices are typically of Mahama, who made a name for himself repurposing unwanted or discarded objects like shoe shine boxes and industrial equipment into monolithic works of contemporary art. For Zachariah, who has made daily visits to Red Clay since he was 9 years old, the center is an opportunity for local children to explore topics otherwise closed to them, helping them build confidence and learn more about who they really are. To his father, Dana, who has developed a passion for aviation while working as Red Clay's caretaker, the planes are symbols of a brighter future.
I'm very happy because it is a future generation that we are sowing here. Everybody wants to sow a good seed. So when you sow good seeds, inshallah, tomorrow it will germinate.
Red clay is a symbol of the power that aviation holds for the mind.
This is where we disembark on the program, but do note, every takeoff is optional. Every landing is mandatory. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi.